History, heritage is, of course, extraordinarily important to any culture because no culture has an identity, no culture even has a future without acknowledging its history, its past, its heritage. And this is something that the Sikh people do very well, as indeed they have to, because they are a relatively small community, globally speaking. And there are forces out there that we refer to regularly who are intent, who are motivated to drive it out of existence. So it is absolutely imperative and it is beholden on every Sikh of every generation to pass this knowledge down to the younger generations. Because the younger generations, there is a huge challenge here. Our younger generations are always distracted. There are so many distractions in the modern world. We have the internet, we have 1,000 channels on the media, we have YouTube and the, handheld games and mobile phones. So again, there's so many distractions to attract our attention's youth away from boring, dry old subjects like our history. So there is that challenge there. But ultimately, it really is important. Unfortunately, the young, generally speaking, do actually find an interest in their culture, especially if it's practiced at home, if they are within a Sikh practicing family, if their parents are there, their grandparents are there. And many of these older generations have lived through some of these really terrible times. Of course, we had, you said 1984, the incidents in 1984, we had the genocide in October, November. We had the terrible attack on the Golden Temple in June of that year, 1984. So there are parents of youngsters now who actually were around at that time. Many of the campaigners now are actively campaigning now as a direct result of their own first-hand or second-hand experience of what happened in 1984. And of course, we have those who, the very, very old generation now, 1947, sadly, of course, they're dying out now. But there are, and in recent times, there were those of the grandparent and great-grandparent generations who were around in the days of partition. Those awful genocidal times when over 1 million people died in the carnage of partition. So again, there are those, very few sadly, but there are those alive who remember these key dates, these key events that helped shape the history and the heritage of the Sikh community. Likewise, again, recent history, the extrajudicial killings in the Punjab of the 1980s and the 1990s, again, where, 100,000 plus young Sikh men were murdered in cold blood and disappeared from Punjab. So likewise, there are family members who were there at that time who remember their colleagues, friends, brothers, fathers, etc., literally disappearing. So again, they have this first-hand experience of these terrible events. And it's these terrible events that must never be forgotten, because it's these terrible events that drive the motivation of the young, that really ignite the fire in the young to take the culture forward, but more importantly, to fight for the whole concept of Khalistan. Khalistan is nothing without its heritage, without its history, because that is the foundation. That is the foundational principle of what will govern, what will manage, and what Khalistan will stand for.